Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Sadık from Istanbul University, Faculty of Economics. I'm the head of economic research at Thaker, one of the leading Turkish think tanks. It gives me a great pleasure to host you in this session of the conference on International Joint Conference. I want to read the whole title on Islamic economics and finance. And I welcome you to Istanbul in the good days of the early September. Today we have an interesting panel of presentations. We will start with Professor Mohamed from Tunisia. He is the head of the research unit on production econometrics from Faculty of Economic Sciences at CFAX University.
Right.
Yeah, I spelled it true.
Yeah.
So the title of his presentation will be Technology Gap and Managerial Efficiency, a comparison between Islamic and conventional banks in MENA. Following Professor Mohamed, we're going to have 3 other presentations. Let's start with Professor Mohamed, and then we will follow suit.
Please, how much time?
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Sorry.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am talking this morning about technology gap and managerial efficiency of banks in Middle East and North Africa banking industry. Let me mention first that the topic of this research follow a conventional flow of research on efficiency measurement comparison between Islamic banks, foreign banks, and so on. Most of these researches are focused on the concept of relative efficiency, either cost or profit efficiency or technical efficiency, but they ignore most of the literature, ignore the technology aspects of the efficiency. What does it mean? Imagine you have a sample of banks in a country. For example, I take international banks and local or domestic banks. If those banks are not sharing a common technology, banks which have more access to innovation, to have better control of their management systems, could be more productive and then could be more efficient. So when you compare the other type of banks which may not have the same technology, these banks should be penalized in terms of productivity or efficiency. And for the economists, most of the time they said they are less efficient, but they don't know why. The motivation of this paper is in fact to distinguish or to decompose the global inefficiency of banks into 2 components, managerial and technology inefficiency. I will develop later the technical detail in my presentation. The methodology we use is called meta-frontier methodology. For those who are not familiar to that methodology, I will develop through a simple graphic what does it mean. Then when we evaluate the efficiency of the banking system in MENA, we will try to compare the efficiency in its 2 components between Islamic and local banks. And also I added at the end of the paper new aspects. I also compare local banks to foreign banks in the region. And finally, the 3rd point is once you estimate some level of efficiency or inefficiency of banks, and what? what after. What after is to try to extend or to look at the covariate or the correlation, which variables may help those banks to improve their efficiency. This is the third point or the third aspect of this research. Concerning the concept of the decomposition of efficiency, I think it's an important issue from an economic policy point of view. There is a difference between the so-called managerial efficiency, which is a mixture of technical efficiency, of allocative efficiency, maybe scale efficiency. Generally, scholars talk about cost efficiency or profit efficiency. Why some banks are more profitable, less costly than others. This concept is cost-free. What does it mean? That if a bank has a low level of inefficiency, of cost efficiency, we said that the bank could improve its profitability by reducing its cost. So it's cost-free. So just you look at your staff and your branches and look what could be done in order to be more productive. Otherwise, if you look to the inefficiency, technology inefficiency means that the banks are not using the best knowledge of the profession, which needs, it's not cost-free, because if a bank is technology inefficient compared to other competitors in their markets, these banks in general need additional investment in human and physical capital in order to get new innovation and so on. So the technology efficiency imply more innovation and good knowledge of information technology, but the issue for economists is a little bit problematic. Why? Because the technology is unobservable. It's not observable, as well as the inefficiency. If you talk with bankers, they said we are efficient than another bank. We are using good technology, but for economists, we observe nothing. So how could we take some information? I think through the ATM or through online banking, the assumption is that if bank has developed ATM and online banking system, those banks may have better control of information of their accounts or product matters, or may better control risk management. So in the paper we focus on that variable. The idea is in fact from Humphrey in Journal of Banking and Finance in 2006, who show that in Europe, in European banking system, the switching from paper-based transaction to electronic transaction may improve the component of the gain of this switch is about 0.4% of total GDP. So, compared to other studies, most of the empirical studies, as I said before, when they compare Islamic banks and local or conventional banks, they just focus on on managerial efficiency or profit efficiency. Exception is the paper of Jones and co-authors and GBO in 2014, who show that there is a difference between technology between Islamic banks and conventional. This is the only published paper, to my knowledge, on this topic. Otherwise, You can find other papers in the literature which try to compare the technology efficiency, and most of this literature, if you look at this column, most of the literature, medical literature in the world, show that technology efficiency in banking is really important and contribute about 35%, 50%, 11% according to the sample or the country studied. The methodology which has been used in this paper is we follow the common, we use the methodology dealing with efficiency model, which is frontier modeling. This is in order to decompose technology efficiency, global efficiency into technical efficiency and technology inefficiency. We use the meta frontier modeling. I used the parametric model. That means we represent the technology by a specific functional form. For a distance check, I compared, I used two functional forms. The technology in the paper to represent the banking technology, how banks transfer inputs to outputs, I use the cost function model. The third point I said, as I mentioned, we try to look at the covariate of this inefficiency. I use the two-step method. That means I evaluate the inefficiency score and then I regrade this score according to other variables. And also I use the one-step method. The detailed, the technical details are found in the paper. I don't have time to go on. So, related literature, few papers, 4 or 5 papers. Most of them are recent, 2012, 2015, 2016, which use a similar methodology of meta frontier. But in MENA, just we have 2 paper journals in GPO, and another, it's a work on paper from IM. So, what about meta frontier? For those who don't know the methodology, here I have in this figure, I consider 3 countries, 3 banking systems: country 1, country 2, country 3, 3 countries. And if you try to estimate the efficiency, just for example, you take this. Sorry. If you take this bank A, which belongs to country 2, this is the minimum cost technology represented by country 2. We just project point A onto the frontier in order to evaluate its cost inefficiency. This is managerial efficiency because we just say that banks, compared to the technology used in its own countries, could reduce its cost by 10, 20%, for example. If this bank is on the frontier, it will be 100% efficient. Otherwise, if you have several countries, we have in MENA 15 countries, and we assume that each country has its own technology. Here I have just 3 countries. So the meta frontier is the frontier, envelope, this frontier envelope of all the other country frontiers. So when you project point A onto its own frontier, you get the blue distance, which is the managerial efficiency. And when you project the point on its own frontier to the regional frontier, you get what we call the technology efficiency. This is the minimum cost obtained by the best technology in the overall country. So remember the 2 colors, the blue for managerial, the green for technology. For our results, I will use the 2 colors too. So in the first step, how does it work, the model? You just estimate each specific frontier to get the managerial efficiency, then calculate the minimum cost. That means that each point, you project that point on its own frontier, and then in the third step, you run again a frontier model in order to envelope the data and get directly the green distance which is the technology inefficiency. This is the model which has been originally proposed by O'Donnell and co-author in 2008 in Empirical Economics, and later improved in Journal of Productivity Analysis by Young and Prof. So the data used, I use bank scope data, about 400 banks in 15 countries. You have the list in the paper. It's an unbalanced panel data, 2,400 observation, unbalanced 2002-2013. We have about 18 banks commercial and 246 Islamic banks, 500 Islamic banks. For the information on online banking service, this information is not in bank scope, is not included in bank scope data set. I get that information on online banking service from the website of each bank sampled in my selected sample. So remember the two colors, the managerial, the blue distance, and the red distance, the technology. So overall, the technology efficiency, the managerial efficiency is much higher than technology efficiency. That means that overall in the region, there is another cost of the banking system much more linked to the bad use of the technology. They are not using the banking system, are far from using the best knowledge of technology of banks. The second point is if you compare Islamic banks to conventional banks, you find that Islamic banks are less efficient statistically. The stars mean the difference in the means is statistically significant. Conventional banks being more efficient in managerial efficiency, and also they are more efficient in using the technology. We will try to explain later why there is some difference and what are the covariance of these two inefficiency components. I also try to make a figure where I project the average value of efficiency by country by crossing managerial efficiency with technology gap efficiency, and we can find this line, the red lines are the average score of conventional banks in the region, the average score of technology gap, and in this area, in this quadrant, for example, you have the countries which are using high level of managerial efficiency, which have high level managerial banking system, which have an efficient managerial banking system, and also have good technology use, which are Yemen, Egypt, Tunisia, Kuwait, and so on. In this quadrant, for example, you have the banks which are penalized in terms both managerial efficiency and also technology efficiency. This is the case of Algeria. This is the case of conventional bank. I have the same diagram for Islamic banks, and we can find there is no clear correlation. That means banks which are managerial efficient are those banks which are also using the best technology. If we look to the efficiency scores over years, if you look at the mean value, there is no real evolution, time evolution of the efficiency score in technology over the period, even if in some countries you have some differences across countries, but there is, however, some differences in the average in the technology used across the years. So from these results, we can 5 minutes, right? So from this first empirical investigation on the efficiency and technology investigation, we find that managerial efficiency is much higher compared to technology inefficiency. Most of the inefficiency in MENA region is coming from the bad use of the technology. These banks should invest in new innovation, and maybe they should switch from paper transaction operation to electronic payment system. The conventional banks dominate Islamic banks, both in terms of managerial and technology efficiency. There is no real improvement in efficiency over the studied period according to our sample. And I also try to estimate the impact of this inefficiency on the revenue. What is the loss in terms of revenue, banking revenue, linked to its inefficiency components, and it is evaluated from our estimation to be 12%. This is the loss in terms of revenue coming from managerial, from technology inefficiency, and 5% coming from 12% coming from technology inefficiency, and 5% coming from managerial inefficiency. So the third point of the study is to try to look at the covariance of these inefficiency components. The dependent variables, we have two dependent variables, two possible dependent variables, which are either managerial efficiency or the green distance, the technology inefficiency. This is not inefficiency, this is, I take this, the efficiency score. Inefficiency is 1 minus the efficiency score. And the independent variables, I take the ownership structure, conventional Islamic banks, and also I added another structure which are foreign banks. Even if foreign banks are not real important in MENA bank, let me mention that for my definition of foreign bank, I will focus on only banks whose parent banks are international banks which belong to developed country. For example, if you look to Islamic banks in Tunisia or in Algeria, most of them are foreign, but the parent bank is Saudian bank. So I consider that in the paper, the international, the foreign bank are only those which are located in developed countries such as HSBC, Citibank, BNP, and so on. So the idea is maybe those parent banks which are located in developed countries are those which are the good drivers of the technology. For that reason, I didn't consider the other case, other foreign which are foreign, which the parents are from MENA region. So I have panel data. Remind that I have some time invariant variable, which are the Islamic banks, foreign status, and also internet banking. Internet banking, it's a dummy variable, which is 1 if the bank declared that she offer online banking services, 0 or not. So these variables are time invariant. So the fixed effects, all those variables we go. So for that reason, I try to use the random effect. In the same case, I ran the Osman test, not in all the cases, but most of the cases, the Osman test is good. So the random effect model could be good estimation result. So what is important here is that if you have two regression, I regress the technology inefficiency according to those variables or the managerial efficiency. And what is found is that Islamic banks are statistically less efficient, maybe 5% less efficient than conventional banks, and also in terms of managerial efficiency, much more about 7% less efficient in terms of technology. The foreign status remind that in the sample, in our sample, I have no international banks which are Islamics, like BNP and so on. Maybe some of them offer the window services, but I don't know that. But we don't have foreign banks which are Islamic. So foreign banks are also, it's a very surprising result, less efficient in terms of technology. So foreign banks in the region are not the drivers of the technology. I'm making a new paper about that question because I'm checking new other variables. So for me, it's an interesting result, but it's an accidental for me result for me. I will try to explain that in other paper. So size is not a good variable for. The size effect is penalize the technology for commercial bank. It has no significant impact for Islamic banks. The intermediation ratio is significant. The market share has no impact on technology. And what is interesting is the internet banking services. This is the key variable in our model. These variables prove to be non-significant for as a determinant of technology for commercial, but it is significant for Islamic banks. So, yes, I will just conclude. To conclude the paper, I tried to decompose inefficiency in MENA region into technical and managerial efficiency and technology inefficiency using meta frontier modeling. There is differences in the technology used. Conventional banks are more efficient, about 5% more efficient in terms of managerial and 7% more efficient in terms of technology. The foregoing revenue associated to these technologies is relatively important, much more important if those banks in MENA innovate more in their banking system. There is a surprising result in the MENA. There is no evidence of technology spillovers from foreign banks in the region, but in the region, those banks have about 5% of market share, so their market share is very low. I think for those banks, it's not a strategy to compete in our banking system. The online banking variable has a positive impact on cost efficiency. Larger banks are penalized in terms of technology efficiency. Maybe most of the largest banks in MENA are public banks due to bureaucracy, to the personal staff. Maybe these banks may found more difficulty to adapt innovation. So recommendation of the paper is monetary authority should reinforce competition in MENA through the telecommunication operators, which are more active in the region, very, very active. So these operators should introduce the service of banking through the mobile, for example. Less regulation, encourage, the authority should encourage creation of immediate payment system, which is very slow payment system, and more incentive for the banking innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohamed Shafai. If everybody agrees, we might continue with the next presentation and have the questions at the end. Is okay? The next presentation we have is by Julasri Abdul Razak, Nur Azizan Chiangi, Marhanum Mohd, Salleh, and Faaza Fakhrunnas. With the topic of a study on sources of Waqf funds for higher education in selected countries. Please.
This is the first one. I can
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much our topic basically is a very quite simple presentation without any paper study, but I think it's important in terms of Malaysia because there's a cut in our education budget so far as financing our students as well running of university. Therefore, the interest of this subject is to actually look at various sources of Waqf fund for higher education in selected countries. And countries that we select is Malaysia, Indonesia, the UK, and also Turkey. Okay, this is my presentation, format, production, methodology, and Vietnam discussion. Alright, the common use of Waqf actually is more on the context of Malaysia for building of mosques, for religious and also for burial matters. By standard use of Waqf nowadays has been gone to education, relief of poverty, agriculture and horticulture. So Dr. Nauta has already presented in Japan also in Singapore the wide use of Waqf for many other purposes. So education is one of the good use. So the problem statement here is that UNESCO has reported in 2009 survey of 51 countries the impact of economic crisis has been tremendous to the education system. So much so that it's affecting the tuition fees, right, recovery of student loan, and so on. So there must be some kind of method whereby we need to increase our education source of financing. So in Malaysia, in itself, there's a cut, right? There's a cut of there's a cut of quite a big budget, 15.84% is the impact in Malaysia. So we need to find some other sort of financing. And Waqf is one of it. What is Waqf? Right. Waqf is a unilateral contract where the report will endorse money, which is the Waqf do not have any intention to receive anything in return. Therefore, it is irrevocable, sustainable, and guaranteed. The main reason for education is the right factor. Waqf is firstly, it fosters relationship with people, and it also helps the poor, right, to reach some kind of a higher education level. So Waqf in Malaysia, as I mentioned just now, 81% of Waqf funds is build mosques and burial grounds. So we need to go out and find other means of Waqf research. So several universities, for example, at my university, IAM, University of Science, Islam Malaysia, UPM and UPM, had made an attempt to use Waqf fund for this purpose. And one college in Terengganu, we call it University College Kristari, is using Waqf fund for this purpose. Alright, and making use of Waqf land. As last time we've been to Sabatin University, right? We also have Waqf land for this purpose. In Indonesia, what we found out is Pondok Modern Guntur, I've been there myself, is using more than 20 branches of 21,890 students, and they have so much of business activities to generate Waqf fund for their education. This consists of, a lot of construction, restaurant, they would have their own pharmacy, stationery shop, and even they have their own mineral water, to generate Waqf fund for the education. Another one is Islamic University of Indonesia. Now in this one, they build up a company to generate money for Waqf fund, such as hotel, gas station, and so on. So in terms of Waqf asset, 2009, UIS 11,659 square feet Waqf these are good attempts, I think, that we should find out from. So what we found, this is of course a very simplistic view, but in Turkey, what we found out is actually Waqf fund be generated by business people, rich philosophers who has donated for Waqf education. Example that we found is this Bilen University and the Koç University, established in 1983, become one of the most developed Waqf in Turkey. And Sakarya is not that. Sakarya is private.
Sakarya is a public university.
Public, but IZU is.
There are Waqfs obviously associated.
How many Waqf university in
Turkey? I don't know the exact numbers, but the total number of universities is around 200, 210. It could be around 50. 50 could be Waqf universities.
And Waqf are private.
They are private, yeah, founded by Waqfs.
So these are some of the ground information that we get. Now in UK, we have slightly, I just like to find out. They don't call it Waqf, but they call it endowment. So I don't know whether endowment is equivalent to Waqf, but the intention here is mostly not for, for Waqf, because it's not for Waqf, and our UK manages fund Waqf, exactly like Waqf. So among Western universities, we have Oxford, Cambridge, UK, Harvard, here, and US. So maybe probably we can discuss later whether we have more on this. I think there's a lot of colleges named under Waqf, right? And this Walton Melton, who are English clergy, starts a religious activity and founded the Merchant College of Oxford. So they are more on alumni base, alumni base. So methodology here is very simple. We just do content analysis and literature review. Right? So what we found out is this. We divide our finding into two categories based on cash Waqf. Which university are using it? We have University Kabasakal Malaysia, University Daniel Malaysia. They have their own cash Waqf fund. And in Turkey, we found out the use of cash Waqf fund also. But for business activities, it's more towards Indonesia. Right? You say Indonesia generally their own getting student intellectual things and some universities in Malaysia. Now for government allocation, we'll see Malaysia. We have the University of Science Islam Malaysia. They receive 2 million to build out medical clinics. Right? For Matawali at this is Negeri Sembilan is one of our states. And IUM, as I said just now, have Waqf fund of 3.5 million established. We have Waqf fund at and the thing about Western University, they are relying more on alumni, as I mentioned, Oxford, UK, and we'll find other by the IUM can generate. But in Malaysia, this alumni thing seems to work well. Why work well in the US? Maybe we can discuss this issue. So in the discussion, what I can say here is that you can say the Waqf education comprises of this means with Waqf, cash Waqf, business activities, allocation, and alumni. And all these four selected countries has the right evidence of that as well. So every country most characteristics to generate Waqf, right? And it is important. So as our recommendation, as this is a new development, at least in my country, Malaysia, the university should look into this, upgrade the education system, provide another source of revenue, making use of Waqf, and this is needed for the poor and the needy especially. So it's recommended that the Waqf education be more active to promote utilization of Waqf to create the benefit and fairness to society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the presentation on the study of sources of Waqf, Professor talked about the content of the Waqf and their use for cash Waqfs and so on. Next, we have Bilen, Ali Kabasakal, and Amna Malik from Sakarya University, analysis of blind dropout from Microfinance, a case study of Ankara and Konya, Turkey, with friends are here. They're not. I can go with the next presentation. Hasanuddin, Thaker, Ahmad, Khaliq, you're here. Okay, let's continue with you. So now we will listen to interest risk management and Islamic banking, evidence from Malaysia. From Hasanuddin, just Thaker and Ahmad, Khaliq.
Thanks to the chairperson. My name is Sadık. So, main also for this paper is my colleague from International Islamic University, Malaysia. So for today's presentation, I will talk about the interest rate risk management and Islamic banking evidence from Malaysia. This is just a working paper and still in progress. So inshallah with the input, I can still further improve this. So this will be my content layout. First, I will start with the background of the study, followed by the literatures, and then the methodology, and duration gap analysis, findings, and conclusion. Okay, fluctuation of the interest rate in the market has led the Islamic bank to become more sensitive and cautious and taking a step ahead in managing good risk management practices. So this is more crucial when the country adopts dual banking systems, and interest rate is obviously prohibited in Islamic perspective. However, it is not mean that Islamic bank will not encounter any risk due to the interest rate fluctuations in the market. As like in Malaysia, we practice the dual banking system. So interest rate, conventional interest rate will definitely impact the Islamic bank's reactions. So this is due to the nature of the Islamic banking balance sheet, where it is fixed on the asset side, whereas conventional banking is look more flexible on the asset side. So this is supported by the literature done by Salina Kasim 2012. So thus put the Islamic bank unable to react drastically to the fluctuation in market interest rate, which later lead to greater exposure to rate of return risk, IFSB 2005. Even though substantial volume of exploration with regards to the Islamic banks and the market risk has been done, nonetheless, limited research, if any, has been carried out in consideration of the interest rate risk management in Islamic bank, okay, which conventionally measure the financial factors such as size, equity over total asset, loan, return on asset, while the measurement of the economic factors include GDP, deposit rate, and inflation. Hence, the research objective for our paper first is to determine, to see whether Islamic bank exposed to the interest rate risk or not by using the analysis called duration gap, and then to determine what are the determinants that influence the duration gaps of the Islamic banks, and then to propose the best way how to mitigate the rate of return risk associated among the Islamic banks in Malaysia. Our contribution from this paper, of course, we believe that it will contribute to the external literature by employing the duration gap analysis, because many of the literature do not apply this methodology before. So this will be a very good contribution, we believe. So there are a lot of literatures that we have gone through, especially in terms of the selection of the variable, and then to identify the gap. And we come to the conclusion that from reviewing the various literature, so we found that even though there are some similarities in terms of findings, but almost none of the study apply the duration gaps analysis to see how sensitive the Islamic banks towards the interest rate movement. Therefore, especially in the context of Malaysia, therefore to fill up the gaps, this paper aimed to use this methodology to see how sensitive is Islamic bank to the interest rate movement. So to carry out this research, we applied the duration gap as I mentioned to you earlier. And then this model proposed by Bacha, 2012 paper, and we used a 5 years period covering 2008 to 2012. And the data for each Islamic banks are obtained from the Bank Negara Malaysia, Central Bank of Malaysia, Bank Score, and also IFS. And we divide variable evidence from the literature into two parts. One is the financial indicators, and then second part is the economic indicators. Financial indicators, we use size, equity to total asset, loan, and return on asset. And then as for the economic indicator, we use GDP, Islamic deposit rate, proxy 3 months, and then IMF, inflation. So duration gap analysis, in my full paper I have shown the formula how I have calculated the duration analysis. And then most of the Islamic banks are having a positive duration gap between the year 2008 to 2012, which means that Islamic bank facing the interest rate risk. That means if the duration gap is positive, means they are having the interest rate risk, they are facing the interest rate risk. So therefore, the fall in the market value of assets as a result of the return on rate of return increase will approximately more than the falls in the value of liability, which definitely squeeze the worth of Islamic bank. Islamic bank are at disadvantaged position when interest rate change. This is evidenced by Obaidullah Bacha paper 2004. In that paper, Obaidullah Bacha gave an example that when Bank Negara increased the interest rate, which is our central bank, so the Islamic bank have to increase the deposit rate. If not, the withdrawal of funds will occur, which may lead to the liquidity problem. And in addition, Islamic banks in Malaysia used to follow conventional interest rate as their benchmark to adjust their deposit rate. Okay? So we calculate the duration, and this is our the duration gaps analysis. So when we apply the model, and then we calculate for each one of the banks, and then altogether there are about 22 banks authorized by the Islamic Bank of Malaysia. And we found that majority of the bank encounter a positive duration gap. Positive means they are facing the interest rate risk. So to see what determine this duration gap, the numbers. So we run the panel data analysis, and this is our generic model. So D gap IB, that is our duration gap analysis, and then we regress with the economic indicators and financial indicators, as I mentioned to you all earlier. And we found that all variables are significantly contribute to the duration gaps, whereby the size, equity to total asset, GDP, Islamic deposit rate are positively correlated, while loan, deposit to total asset, return on asset, and inflation are found to have a negative correlation. And the David-Watson 1.72 shows there is no autocorrelation problems in the model. And we also have run the osmosis test, and we used random tests to run this analysis. So the estimation shows that the relationship between size of the asset duration gap is positively related, and this is true. When the size of the asset is greater, the larger will be the duration gap for the Islamic banks, as most of the Islamic bank financial activities are asset concentrated, such as mudarabah, musharakas. Therefore, if the rate of return is highly fluctuation, it will definitely cause volatility in the asset and squeeze the profit of the Islamic banks, and this is consistent with the Zainul and Qasim 2010. Negative relationship found between the duration gap and equity to total asset. When the duration gap is positive, represent the assets are more price sensitive than liability. Therefore, rise of the return on assets, return on rate of return, asset will approximately more than or faster than the liability, and this will get the duration gap more wider and squeeze the equity value of the Islamic bank. And this is supported by draft of 2001. A positive relationship is also found between loan and duration gap, where the proportion of the loan increase, it will add extension of the typical maturity mismatch between asset and liability, and expose the bank to the higher rate of return risk, because the maturity of the bank is high. And then the ROA is not significantly affected. And then we also found that there is a positive relationship between GDP and duration gap. This shows that Islamic bank deposit rate is found to having a positive relationship with the duration gaps of Islamic banks in Malaysia. This is because there is no specific benchmark that can be used to determine the profit rate. Therefore, Islamic banks have to rely on conventional interest rate to determine the rate of return, especially in determining the markup rate. And then a negative relationship is also found between inflation and duration gaps. Higher inflation could lead to the reduction in the deposit. As economically speaking, public will spend the money rather than deposit since the inflation is high. So when this event occurs, Islamic bank will involve less in financing activity as their deposit fund become less, therefore duration become smaller, which lead Islamic banks exposed to the less return of risk. So as for the conclusion, it is very clear that most of the Islamic banks do faces the interest rate risk as indicated by the duration gap analysis. So to push up the bank's performance, banks require to often monitor their sensitive rate of interest, assets and liability. As for the recommendation, to conclude, to protect the Islamic banks from the risk is possible by reducing the maturity loan on the asset side. And however, this seems to be dangerous in nature to the Islamic bank structure in general. Therefore, when we ask the practitioner, they suggest that Islamic banks should aggressively involve in more for the non-liquid financing activities such as BPA, Murabaha, Mudarabah, Musharaka. So this can slightly lower down the interest rate risk facing the Islamic banks. So with that, that's the conclusion for my studies. Very simple studies.
Thank you very much. Do we have the chance to listen to the presentation to Mohamed, Bilen and Ali Kabasakal? Okay. So pretty much that is it as far as the presentations are concerned. As you are here, I mean, if there are any questions to the current speaker, you might take it. Please.
You know, the thing that you claim to be uniqueness of this paper, I have a question. How did you calculate its duration? Very difficult.
Yes. Duration gap analysis, first we calculate the duration of the assets of the Islamic bank.
But how do you do that? You need
Okay, in Islamic banks, the duration of the asset is measured by the financing activities, and then duration of the liability is measured by the deposit they receive.
No, I understand, but in the formula, you need a discounting factor.
Yes.
So how do you do that?
So we use the benchmark. So one of the literature done by Salina and Zainab 2012, they use 3 months deposit rate as their yield to calculate the duration.
But when you look at the asset side, you know, different types of assets, so you put all types of assets?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, because the literature shows in that way.
How many banks?
About 20 to 22.
Banks. How many years?
2004. Yeah. 2008 until 2012.
4 years.
Yes. Just a small coverage. Inshallah, in future, I will extend this for you. Thanks.
Any other question? If there are questions to other speakers, you might take them. To Professor Mohamed or...
So I want to ask you a question. How do you find that Islamic banking become more efficient than your results?
No, less efficient.
Less
Less
efficient. 5%.
Why is that compared? Is it because of the technology?
In terms of cost efficiency, maybe the covariance shows that maybe they are not using the online banking services.
So they need to upgrade their service.
And also the side variables penalize them in terms of efficiency. But it's just coverage, it's not causality. It's not causality.
No.
just a correlation.
So that, okay, you use the cost function to do that. So did you try the profit function?
I didn't try the profit function. You have two problems with the profit function. One possibility is to use the real profit function, which means that banks that don't have market power, for example, or in the region, some banks may have some market power and others. So we have public bank status, which means that those banks are not necessarily maximizing their profits. Otherwise, if you take the non-standard profit functions here, that means that all the banks have market power. They make money by increasing their price, which is not the case for some private banks. So the profit specification is not bad. In the model, as a robustness check, I use two functional forms, the transfer cost function and the calculus cost function, and the results are very close.
Yeah, but
Conclusions.
notwithstanding the weakness of this profit function, but people use it, like that is a problem everywhere, right?
Yes.
When you look at the banking sector in any country, some banks are more powerful than the others.
Yeah.
But if you can, why don't you look at this? Because most of the studies, put in mind, shows that, as you said, it's cost inefficient, but they are profit efficient.
Yes.
Some banks. So one of the reasons is said that, okay, they're selling religion. People just put their deposit without really looking at the consequences of those. That's number one. Number two, you got a contrary result on this foreign banks and technology, right? So why don't you do an interaction term and see whether you try to give an explanation? No, I'm talking about this public banks and technology.
Yeah.
The technology is reducing efficiency, right?
Yeah.
And your explanation was that is because most of these banks are dominated by public and they are lax in adopting technology and so on. So can you do an interaction term with this ownership and ownership?
Size.
Well, ownership and this technology and see whether that takes care of it. That's the way you can answer whether, yeah.
But I'll come back to the profit function. For those people who work on production economics, they don't like they don't like the non-standard profit function. And there is a recent paper by Kumpaka who show that there is some wrong things in theory with respect to, and we propose to correct it, even if it is commonly used by scholars. But for that reason, only there is a paper in Journal of Banking and Finance. The first paper was used in Meta Frontier Rankings, 2007, who used both the cost specification and the non-standard profit function for in Europe, and it shows for the sample data that there is no difference. There is no technology differences in Europe in their banking system. But even if I am not really convinced.
No, but try it because I understand your because the reviewer the other side they are not really as fast. They know that this doesn't make any sense unless you're a production economy. If you are sending to the final journal,
maybe they will call. Okay, all right.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
I have a question to Prof. Abdul. So you mentioned about the education Waqf. How about the collaboration with the Islamic banks? Are there any collaboration with the Islamic banks or financial institutions?
Collaboration?
Yeah. For example, some investing money from Waqf and distributing something.
Yeah. Collaboration.
Some Waqf.
Yes. But I think the sources of funds more towards Malaysia try to generate this more institution.
No issuance of school.
Yeah. The problem with Malaysia is that Waqf is under the state, So we are restricted to move because we have 30 states and each of the ruler are controlling one in the Waqf. So we need to get their permission for education. It's very restricted.
But you know, you mentioned this before, but you left out Egypt. Why? Egypt has also long Waqf.
Could be just one.
I can do it in Egypt as well. Actually, Waqf could be our next revolution, really, I feel. There's so many Waqf existing land-wise, which can be developed, and also we can bring new source of Waqf, like cash Waqf. And the government cannot really provide all the services anymore in the modern states, so we really need to resort to this Waqf source of financing.
It actually creates new forms of financing.
Yeah.
For education, for health, for like many charitable activities and so on. It might go into like running businesses as well.
Yes.
So
In
it can
Indonesia,
merge.
we have business runs almost.
So you don't need continuous financing by someone. It can finance itself. So it's a good. I mean, during the Ottoman period, there was a very like sophisticated network of Waqf system. Everybody knows that. But if you go into the detail, I mean, you can see that for every field they had like a sophisticated network of different forms of Waqf. So, and obviously, much of the things that the modern state was doing, it was done by Waqf in the past. So, but still, they are very important. Question?
I can add.
Yeah.
The Muhammad also make collaboration with the Badal of Islam to collect the Waqf fund, cash Waqf, and then they use it for health, education.
Prof, since you're from US, I would like to know alumni. How is that compared?
No, actually in the US they have this called foundation, not Waqf, but
And
basically.
endowments, do they use endowments as well?
Well, they use the endowment, also this like Oxford and Cambridge, those sort of foundations. Those ideas came from Waqf concept really that time. In the US like endowment. So for example, University of Chicago Booth School of Business. So one of their alumni became rich in our finished his PhD and became billionaire. He paid a donation of $200 million. He went to the university and said, okay, this money can be used for research and development. What really bothers me, is part of our faith, charity, in Islamic world. I mean, it used to be golden ages, and there are so many rich people, among the Muslim world, that they're not paying anything. Paying anything, I'm talking about making a donation for the cause of Muslim Ummah.
Yeah.
But they will be paying donation. I heard the Sultan of Balkia, the Brunei Darul Salam.
Yes.
He made $10 million donation to a dog hospital in Paris. I'm just asking our mindset. So what do you?
There was a similar discussion when one private one private company, I won't give the name, but one private holding from Turkey, which is known to be like closer to conservative kind of service, and they made a donation. I think it was like $25 million to finance like a medical research facility in Harvard. So then there was a similar kind of debate. People said, why don't you do this kind of investment to support research here? But they said, this is the real hub where the medical kind of research is going on, and there will be offshoots for Turkey as well, and so on and so forth. But you're right.
Let me give another example. Timur Quran, he's a very world-class economist, and actually he's if you look at from the perspective of his knowledge and analysis, you have to admire it. But he has been working, everything, he's trying to destroy the concept of Islamic economics.
Yes.
And he was endowed shareholder at the University of Southern California for $10 million. And do you know who gave the money? The king of Saudi Arabia. Sometimes what I feel that it's just same self-propagation, self-pleasement, giving money to a dog charity in Iberis, this and that. Where we are? We have to blame.
The Waqf shall aim to be efficient as well in terms of the Ummah. So, endogenous development.
Yeah.
Scientific, research, basic education, whatever.
When the entire history, you can learn the Ottoman and the Egypt and this area. I mean, the entire development happened because of Waqf. Really, people have donated money for different reasons.
Yeah.
You're
And
not-
I think morally as well, donating like huge sums for Waqfs endowments, it should be kind of made more popular. I mean, now it's not that kind of thing. I think it should be like seen as a duty. If you have like wealth above a certain level, threshold, so to speak, you need to have a backup fund. It should go for education and research and so on. I think it should be emphasized more. I think.
A revival of Waqf.
Yeah, it's very important.
Any other questions, comments?
Isn't Mohamed presenting here?
No.
Mohamed Ashuddin in this session?
No, it's not. It's not in this session.
Is there another session this morning?
Yes,
Yeah.
there are two sessions.
His presentation is 4 to 4 right
There are
now.
another session, or maybe the other one.
Yeah. He's in the fourth session.
Fourth session.
If
Fourth
there are no further questions, then I think we can wrap up the session.
Sertifika vereceğiz işte. Sertifika.
We will present certificates for the presenters.
Uğur. Birkaç ya. Şimdi fotoğrafçımız geliyor hocam.
Yeah, of course. I'm looking at Zakaria. Think tank. Think
Website in order to verify whether online service about 60%, 70% have the service.
Arkada gene şey olsun, konumuz.
60%.
So I would like to present the certificates to start from Professor Abdul Razak.
Ölçüde masanın önüne alabilir.
I'll send you the code. Yes.
Biraz sola alsam bile şey olur. Sözümüzün şeye görüşsün. Buradayız hocam, gözler burada.
So, you have my card.
Yes.
Done? Okay. And Nur Azizan, Embi, maybe not here.
Go together.
Go together. Marhanum, Salleh. Okay. Fakhrunnas. Mahmud, Bilen, Kabasakal, Embi, Malik. Hasanuddin. Yes. Very ceremonial.
Buradayız hocam.
Flash mı?
Aynen.
Flashsız olsun.
Tamam. Tamam.
Okay, Jazakallah. Thank you. And we have the Ahmad Khalid. Shafi Mohamed with you? No, okay. Sorry, I just... Okay, let's have... Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.